Hey, how you doing? This is RJ. So I figured that since it was the end of the year, I might take stock of the year. But honestly, what I want to do is take stock of, well, my entire channel and take stock of the arguments that I've made and perhaps condense them down into a much more digestible format. And I suppose that in some way this video is a week late because you could have used this information before Christmas when you had to talk with members of your family that were, let's just say, not on board with any of your ideas about entertainment. But hey, what can I do? Because what I want to do is to boil the entire thing down. Yes, I still believe that our entertainment is being taken over by communist ideas. I still believe that it's propaganda. But when you say those things to people who don't follow any of this stuff, they just look at you like you're crazy. So let's boil it down to a more simplistic format and more simplistic language. And I know that people from the first of my channel have been saying to me, RJ, can you give it to me in a more simplistic form so I can talk to my family members about it? And really, the most simplistic form would be to say, I just want good entertainment. And the question asked back to you would probably be, how is it not good entertainment what you're receiving today? However, let me just break in there and say, if you want some good entertainment, I have 2 links in the description and the pinned comment for my 3 graphic novels. They are graphic novels that center around the idea of hero, 2 superhero graphic novels, 1 low fantasy. You're looking at some of the beautiful art for those in the background. So if any of that looks or sounds appealing to you at all, click on one of those links in the description or the pinned comment and go on over and see if my graphic novels are for you. But back to the topic. So again, straight to the point, say, I just want good entertainment. And the question back would probably be, how are you not getting good entertainment right now? And there's a simple answer to that without actually putting in words like woke or progressive or quote unquote progressive or anything like that. Just simply say, entertainment today is not entertaining, it's a political ad. Because that is essentially what passes for entertainment today. It is a political ad. So if I'm going to spend money and my time on a movie, a show, a novel, a game, a comic book, why in the world would I spend my time and money so that someone could advertise to me, let alone advertise their politics to me? Because a 2 to 3 hour movie becomes a 2 to 3 hour political ad. A 12 to 24 hour show becomes a 12 to 24 hour political ad. A 300-page novel becomes a 300-page political ad. A 300-hour game becomes a 300-hour political ad. Why in the world would I spend that much time and that much money so that someone could advertise their politics to me? And there would probably be one of 2 ways in which that would be attacked. Number 1, to claim that, well, entertainment has always been political, or to take the opposite route and say, well, that's not even close to true. Now, the great thing about the people who say entertainment has always been political is to point out that they're being absolutists. So they're taking a absolutist moral stance because politics, again, the highfalutin way of saying it is the branch of philosophy that it derives itself from is moral philosophy. But again, take that down a notch and say, well, politics deals with public rules that we all have to live by. And you're talking about an absolute concerning public rules, about public morality. So you're an absolute public moralist. You're saying that everybody has to and everything has to conform to the morals that you are ascribing to or that these people are ascribing to. And if you put it that way, you can put it in your own words, but if you put it that way, they'll quickly back off. Because really, all you have to do is show one example of a piece of entertainment that's not political, and you'll show that it's not always been political. And I'm sure you can do more than one. I'm sure you can do a dozen. I'm sure you can do more than a dozen. Don't get bogged down in the weeds, obviously, but it's easy enough to show that, first of all, you're being an absolutist when you say all. It's not all. It may be some. You may even say that it's most. But again, are you saying that about everything now? Are you saying that about everything in the last 10 years, in the last 20 years, in the last 100 years, for the history of mankind? What do you mean by always? You can't back up that claim of always. There's been plenty of entertainment out there that was just pure entertainment. That is to say, pure escapism. Escapism is to escape from this world into another. Politics destroys escapism by putting the politics of this world into another one. But let's not, again, get bogged down in those weeds. The point is more to the fact that they can either claim to be a moral absolutist and then make themselves out to be a hypocrite. And I'm sure if you're sitting around a table with other people, that will become very obvious, and then their argument will fall apart. Because, as I always say, yes, there is a way to win an argument against an irrational person. It's to have an audience and to show the audience that your opponent is foolish. But again, if the point is that they back down from being a moral absolutist, then you'll say, well, look, it doesn't matter if the entertainment that is not political is in the minority, majority, doesn't matter. I like that kind of entertainment. And that's not what I'm getting today. Very rare instances anyway, and you have to go search for it, and that's what you want. So that's what you're going to go out and find, and that's what you're going to promote, and that's what you're going to support. And it wouldn't hurt to point out the fact that, as I will talk about a little bit later, if they say that most people want it to be political, well, guess what most people in America today, after those election results, want as their political? Are you okay with it being that kind of political? And again, if the answer is no, hypocrisy follows. And just a caveat to all of that was some argument that I got into on Twitter. I rarely ever actually get into arguments with people on Twitter, but I had a little bit of free extra time that day. So this guy come onto my Twitter and basically said, don't I realize that the people who are selling me these, let's say, Comicsgate ideas, these alternate entertainment ideas, are just doing it to make money off of me? And I had to post back, well, starting with a facepalm emoji and then saying, basically, wow, you just don't get it. That's what we want. We want people to be concentrating on how much money am I going to make from this product. That way, they don't alienate any of their audience by sticking politics into it. He just didn't get it. But anyways, let me move on. Now, if the claim is that people are not sticking their politics into the entertainment of today, well, that's easily debunked as well. Really, all you would have to do is say, give me the name of a show that you like. Then Google that name of the show and politics, or progressivism, or woke, and just see how many results pop up on Google. You don't even have to show them these articles themselves. Just show them the list that Google pulls up that connect those two things, the show or movie or whatever piece of entertainment they like, and politics and political terms. Because the writers of these shows, games, books, movies want to shout it to the housetops that what they are creating is at its heart a political vehicle. My channel itself is a litany of interviews, podcasts, articles of writers doing this exact thing. Just off the top of my head, you got Kelly Sue DeConnick, creator of the new version of Miss Marvel, saying, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my books. The general gist of that idea is politics, her politics, are the central part of her books. Therefore, if you buy her books and you don't like her politics, you're not going to like the books because politics is there at the center. So again, it's not entertainment, it's a political ad. G. Willow Wilson, co-creator of Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, doing an interview with the New York Times, which I covered, saying the reason why she became a writer to begin with was to change the world. Through what? Through the presentation of her politics. And she doubles down on that because this interview was done around 2018. And she goes on to say that because of Donald Trump being in the White House at that time, she had to switch what she was doing as a writer to go on the defensive for the political leaders that share her political views. And that's what, in 2018, her writing became. So again, the heart of her writing was politics. The other co-creator of Kamala Khan, the vice president of Marvel Comics content and character development, stating that superheroes were America's new mythology, which needed to push positive ideas. And she goes on in that interview to talk about positive ideas being progressive political ideas. But again, don't even have to enter the progressive into it, just political ideas. The podcast of the 4 future great writers for Marvel Comics, where they talk about identity politics as the central point of why they write. The BookCon that I covered, not just comics, BookCon, I think it was Sal West book, where they had entire panels about how to insert politics, certain kind of politics into children's picture books. So much that they said, as one of the presenters claimed, if a child is going to be underneath their bedclothes with a flashlight reading your book, you need to be there. You need to make that message in your book, your political message in your book, so clear that it's like you're under the covers with that child, whispering it into their ears. And again, that's a quote. That's not me paraphrasing. All of these things I've covered on my channel. The Writers Guild of America Association Zoom call I covered, what, year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, where they talked about queering legacy characters, where they literally went over how the history of inserting these political ideas into entertainment grew and grew. How it began as a bit of comedy in the background, then it moved on to one of the side characters, then it moved on to the best friend of the main character, and today it becomes the main character is that political message. And how that itself wasn't even enough. They needed to have all of the characters on board, including the villain, with this political ideology. Again, with the politics being the center of the story. And I'm sure you could go to other channels that discuss other things besides comic books or superhero entertainment and just find a litany of examples on their channel as well. I'm just thinking about Gamergate. And what was the name of that woman who called Carl a garbage human being? Anita Sarkeesian, who said, everything is political, everything is misogynistic, everything is racist. And it is your job to constantly point that out. What is that? It's a statement of everything is political. Everything is political. Therefore, your entertainment is political. Now, that litany is for you and me. If you want to bring that up, you go ahead. If you have the knowledge to do so, you go ahead. But there's a much easier way to do it. Simply ask the question, if there's politics in this story, does it affect the climax of the story? If it affects the climax of the story, then it is part of the driving force, if not the entire driving force, behind the story. Because that's what these writers are always talking about. They're talking about the driving force. Sometimes they say the engine behind their story. And that driving force is, as they state over and over again, not me putting words into their mouths. You can go and Google these things. You can go on my channel and look through the podcasts and the articles and everything else. Them saying, yes, the center of why they are writing is political. And if the center of why they're writing is political, then what you have within your quote-unquote story is simply a political ad. And, oh, by the way, this doesn't just include entertainment either. If you want to go in the direction of, I don't want to watch mainstream media news anymore. Why? Because it's not actually news. It's a political ad. They have a certain political bent, and they're trying to convince you of it. It's a political ad. Now, the question might be raised, why in the world would they go to all of that trouble to do that? Why? Well, there's a very simple psychological explanation of why they do that. It's because a story requires suspension of disbelief. You must engross yourself in that world, make it real for your imagination so that you can follow along and enjoy the story. That's what suspension of disbelief is. And it can be small, it can be large, doesn't matter if it's science fiction or just plain old fiction, or even something like historical drama. There's still a suspension of disbelief that needs to be engaged in order for you to perceive this world that you're seeing on a screen, in the printed word, through a game, as if it were real enough for you to be caught up by it and then entertained. But the point is that suspension of disbelief is an engagement of acceptance of things that you know that aren't real. And so the insertion of politics into this storyline is to get you to continue that suspension of disbelief, that acceptance of the world as it is presented to you in this story, to encompass the political beliefs as well. Or, to put it in more layman's terms, you're letting your guard down in order to enjoy the story, taking things in passively, accepting them, and by inserting their politics, the politics of the reader or the company that makes it, into the story, they want you to simply continue that inertia, that movement of acceptance, to be of their politics as well, as you accept the world, simply to enjoy it as a piece of entertainment. And oh, by the way, this is not something new at all. It's just become much more apparent in the last 10 years. Going back to the standard stories that the people who make the argument against me used to go back to, things like, let's say, Harry Potter or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because those are the two go-tos they used to pull out as their standard for good entertainment until, of course, Joss Whedon was shown to be not so nice to women and J.K. Rowling was shown to be opposed to the T part of the rainbow flag. But again, what did J.K. Rowling do? She said after the entire thing was done, her book series was done, after it became movies, after it blew up, she said, oh, guess what? Dumbledore is part of the Rainbow Coalition. Again, insertion of politics. Or go back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It followed very much the pattern of shows at that time, which was what? Well, the pattern was to have a show that made money. And when it started to go over the tipping point so that it was on a downward slope, it had hit its peak, then you insert the politics. Why? Because you're going to lose money anyways. Might as well lose it sticking your politics in there. That's what that show did. That's what a lot of other shows did. And again, you could go way back. This has been going on at the very least since the 60s. Go back to something like All in the Family. The whole point of the show was to begin it with that song where Archie Bunker and his wife were talking about, reminiscing about the good old days and how they were much better. And then in the show, that conservative fellow was shown to be racist, bigoted, homophobic, closed-minded, everything you could think of to be negative. So don't think of conservative times as anything but negative. And his son-in-law was the political optimist, so-called, and his politics were the right politics. And again, I could go back in history for the same thing. Henry VIII ordering the destruction of all monuments and books and manuscripts that talked about the medieval period in a positive way so that he could make his choices look like the new golden age. And again, that is a lie, which me as a student of history, I was around when that was just finally beginning to break, which was the 1990s, almost 500 years later. The same thing with the ancient pharaohs, for crying out loud. The fact that they would chip away at raised hieroglyphics and then put sunken hieroglyphics in their place to show that no, it wasn't a golden age before. The golden age is now. But again, just me saying this is not something new. There's plenty of ways for you to argue that no, this is not something new. What is new about it is the fact that they're being so blatant about it right now. And the blatant part is kind of important. Again, the fact that you could Google whatever piece of entertainment you want with politics attached to that Google search and pull up a whole bunch of articles about how it is politically directed in this direction, specific direction, is to show you, and perhaps whoever you're talking to, just how central to entertainment today this is. And the question then becomes, why do they need to hide their political message, their political ad, in a story? We've already shown that it's nothing more than a political ad. If indeed the culmination of the story, the high point of the story, the climax of the story, is affected by the politics of either the central figure or the cast of characters as they exist, then yeah, it's a political message. It's a directed political message. Why in the world do they need to put a directed political message, a political ad, as it were, into the form of a story? Doesn't that seem kind of underhanded? If they can make a case for their political agenda, have them do it out in the open. Why can't they do it out in the open? Why do they need to couch it in a story where your guard is down because you're trying to enjoy a piece of entertainment? Why? Well, the answer to that question is because look around you at the results of the election in the last couple of months. You have Kamala Harris literally on tape saying everybody needs to be more woke. Not less woke, more woke. What did she say? The wokeist, woker, it doesn't matter as long as you become more woke. And what did Donald Trump say? We are getting rid of woke. And who won the election? In a resounding victory, by the way. That resounding victory is to say that people don't want woke. People don't want more politics. They want less politics. Again, don't even have to enter the word woke into it. I suppose you might have to if you're going to use that example. But the point is, people want less politics, not more politics. But again, it's the results that matter. And the results are that one side of this election, the one side that was backed by the vast majority of the entertainment system, and that was one of the selling points of the entire campaign of Kamala Harris, all these entertainers, all these actors, all these big names were backing her, which just goes to show you what kind of politics that are being inserted into entertainment. And the point is, again, the majority, in a resounding victory for Donald Trump, showed that no, they don't want that kind of politics in their entertainment, to the extent that it seems that they don't want politics at all in their entertainment. You could make that argument as well. But again, the point of saying that is they made their argument. They made it out in the open, and people rejected it. That's the answer to the question of why do they need to couch this in stories? Why do they need to hide a political ad in a story? Why do they need to make entertainment itself a political ad? Not just a little bit of the entertainment, but the entire thing, a political ad. Why? Because they made their open argument in the air of the public square, and people said no. And if entertainment keeps on going in this political direction, it's a simple statement on the part of this certain political ideology, certain political bent, certain political group of people who, again, we know are the majority of people that backed one side in this election, are saying, well, we gave them our best argument out in the open public square and they rejected it. So obviously, most people simply cannot be trusted with an actual decision. Their acceptance, therefore, of what is quote unquote right must be taught to them in a way that they can't perceive, in a way that they don't know it's there, in a way that they don't understand is an actual political ad that they accept by accepting the story. And that's really what it all comes down to. You cannot be trusted with your own thoughts. You cannot be trusted to have your own thoughts. Everyone's looking at one side of the political aisle's attempt to, over and over again, suppress freedom of speech. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg. They want to suppress free speech because they don't trust you with your own thoughts. You're not allowed to think the way that you want to think. You're not allowed to make decisions on your own. You're not allowed to evaluate things by yourself with your own thoughts and come to your own conclusions. That's why it's couched in a story. That's why stories are, in effect, political ads. That's why your nightly news on the television is a political ad. Because you, as a normal individual, as one side of the political aisle believes, cannot be trusted with your own thoughts to make a decision. And again, let's bring it down a notch to a bare bones argument. Why don't you want these political ads masquerading as entertainment? Why? Because it's a straight up statement that you are a stupid person. They're calling you stupid. They're saying, I can't give you this political argument out in the open. It doesn't work. I need to convince you of it through other means besides open means. Why? Because you're too stupid to get it otherwise. And again, it's mandatory acceptance. If you get to the climax of the entire piece of entertainment and it's dependent upon a certain political view, that's a demand that you accept it. If you don't accept it, you just wasted all your money and all your time on that piece of entertainment. Which again, you want to go highfalutin, it's basically the engagement of the sunken cost fallacy, which is to say, you put all this money and all this effort into it, you might as well accept it. But again, the point being, simply to say, well, if they want to be open and honest about their political ads and their political messaging, then give it to me. Let me evaluate it myself. But if you're not allowing me to do that, and you're not within a story, then you're saying I'm simply too stupid to understand it any other way. And I'm not going to sit here and have someone, first of all, tell me I have to spend my time and my money so that they can advertise to me politics, and secondly, to call me stupid. On the contrary, I want smart entertainment. Smart entertainment says it's up to you to make your own mind up about your life, about the direction of your life, about how you think, about what you think about. Here, perhaps, are some tools that you might use in order to do that. That's what smart entertainment does. And even if you still claim that the majority of entertainment is and always has been political, would you rather not have smart political entertainment than political entertainment that calls you, as the consumer, stupid? Because if the only selling point that you have left is to hide political ads everywhere that you can stick them because you think that the normal everyday person is stupid, to the extent that they shouldn't be left to make choices about their own lives, then your political ideas aren't worth the paper that they're written on. So, if I've given you anything new to think about, hit like, hit the shield in the lower right-hand corner of your screen to subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about all this. And don't forget, there are 2 links in the pinned comment and the description of this video for my 3 graphic novels that are pure entertainment, excitement, adventure, and fun. You're looking at some of the beautiful art for those in the background. So if any of that looks or sounds appealing to you at all, click on one of those links in the description and go on over and order yourself a copy of one of my graphic novels today. All right, I'll leave it there. I'll see you later. Bye.